Is it possible that everything we've been taught about hard work is a myth? Picture a late night in a deserted office. One lone worker fights exhaustion, convinced that every extra hour equals a step toward success. The coffee tumbles cold at their side. But what if this marathon of busyness is just a hamster wheel? What if instead of paving the road to greatness, endless slogging is blurring the view ahead? Imagine defining achievement by hours on the clock. Then the person who works 80 hours a week must be wiser than someone who works 40. It sounds logical at first. Longer effort, bigger reward, but science tells another story. In fact, one engineer famously pointed out that impact is what matters, not the number of hours you are working. Obsessing over hours is like counting your heartbeats to measure fitness. An interesting number, sure, but it reveals nothing about your health. You could sit in a fancy office chair for 12 hours straight, consuming endless Red Bulls, but if you're not moving the needle on your real goals, what have you truly accomplished? Sooner or later, every thinker hits a wall. The brain and body have limits. Research shows cognitive performance begins declining significantly after 8 to 9 hours of consecutive work. Stanford economists found that once we exceed about a 50-hour work week, productivity per hour plummets and total output actually drops. In other words, extra hours beyond a point do more harm than good. Vision blurs, fingers fumble, ideas flatten. One veteran coder put it bluntly. At some point, you hit a wall. Your brain turns to mush. And every extra hour does more harm than good. As midnight wears on, working harder can start to work against us. We treasure hard work. We raise it on a pedestal, teach it to children, and brand it on our resumes. My own parents told me the same mantra. Keep your head down, work hard and work some more. It was hammered into me like gospel. But as my mind prowls these midnight halls, I wonder, is there a smarter path? The phrase work smarter, not harder dates back decades, and it's almost cliché now. On its face, it sounds like an invitation to innovation. Find clever strategies, tools, or shortcuts to reach your goals. But what does that really mean? Experts clarify that working smarter isn't a license to slack off. It's about combining effort with strategy. It's a philosophy of efficiency and creativity. One educator explains, the notion of working smarter and not harder does not undervalue effort. Rather, it's a strategy for achieving goals that enhance that effort. In practice, this means putting the same drive and commitment into the right tasks, not just more tasks. Consider the Pareto principle, often called the 80-20 rule. It suggests roughly 20% of our activities produce 80% of our results. An Amazon manager turned entrepreneur even hung a mantra on his wall, work smarter, not harder, embodying that rule. He learned the hard way. At first he'd grind late nights, believing more lines of code or more meetings meant more success. But then he dove into the data and realized most of his team's effort was wasted. Meeting after meeting, committee after committee, produced little real progress. When he stopped chasing bureaucracy and focused on the core tasks that mattered, his team's productivity skyrocketed. For example, by actually spending time with customers and writing code instead of endless calls, they quadrupled their output at no extra personal cost. In short, the bulk of impact came from a narrow slice of activity. What does this look like on the ground? Researchers who studied thousands of people found that top performers don't scatter effort. They carefully select a few high-value activities and put intense focus into them. They eliminate busy work and dive deep on what really counts. It's like a master archer choosing one small target and nailing it dead center, rather than firing arrows at every bird in the sky. These high performers even buck the common advice that more collaboration is always better. In fact, they collaborate less, shunning committees and conversations that don't move the needle. When they do connect with others, it's purposeful and limited to what will make a real difference. In essence, working smarter means asking yourself, what tasks truly maximize value? What can I say no to? This kind of focus can feel counterintuitive. For example, we've all felt the pull of multitasking, answering an email while writing a report, or scrolling through news feeds just for a moment. But neuroscience is clear. The human brain can only really focus on one thing at a time. Our cortex switches rapidly between tasks, and each switch wastes time and energy. Studies find that when we try to multitask, our performance actually drops compared to doing one thing at a time. We end up feeling busy, but we're deceived. The myth of multitasking makes us feel productive even as our work quality slips. In practice, working smarter often means doing the opposite of what feels productive. It means closing extra tabs, silencing notifications, and saying no to the temptation of just checking something. A simple act like turning off irrelevant pings or scheduling 2 focused hours per task can transform your output. Pause is part of progress. Human minds aren't machines. Breaks are not the enemy of work, they're its allies. Intentional rest is a hidden strategy for better performance. Brain science shows regular breaks rejuvenate focus and creativity. In fact, scheduling short pauses actually improves performance and well-being. Stepping away to walk, stretch, or just breathe isn't slacking off. It's recharging the battery so you'll do better work when you come back. This explains why many overnight success breakthroughs occur during walks, showers, or sleepy early mornings. Because the mind needed that space to stitch ideas together. Working smarter also means choosing the right environment. Our personalities shape what conditions help us focus. For some, bright, busy open offices are inspiring. For others, they're distractions. A study of federal workers found introverts work better in quiet private spaces, while extroverts thrived in lively communal areas. The lesson? A tidy desk, a bit of sunlight, even soft music isn't fluff. These are practical tweaks that align your external world with how your mind works. If noisy chaos makes you tense, find a corner or slip on noise-canceling headphones. If you crave energy, put your desk near people. Small, personalized adjustments can dramatically boost focus. Let's try a thought experiment. Imagine two people face the same pile of wood to build a shelter. One person hammers away furiously with a dull chisel all day. The other sharpens their blade carefully each time it dulls, sometimes resting and planning new angles. Who builds it faster? Intuitively, we might cheer for the relentless hammerer. But the careful builder cuts deeper with each strike. They're working smarter, not just harder. Sometimes stepping back to sharpen the tools saves hours of brute force. Yet many of us feel guilty for that pause. It's as if hustle culture whispers, if you aren't exhausting yourself, you're slacking off. But what if the real slacker is the one who never stops to think? Who misses the obvious shortcut? Who mistakes movement for progress? Here's where things get complicated. Maybe work smarter itself has become an oversimplified slogan. Some experts caution that tossing this phrase at people can backfire. Telling someone to work smarter, not harder, assumes that a better way always exists, and that the person just isn't thinking of it yet. But what if there isn't a known better way? Or what if finding a smarter solution takes more time and effort up front? One study in retail workplaces found just that. Managers tried to improve productivity with this mantra without real analysis. And guess what happened? Workers ended up feeling they were working even harder, and yet productivity actually dropped. The boss said work smarter, but no one explained how, so everyone just kept grinding, only now with frustration added. In other words, work smarter isn't a magic wand. It's not a substitute for good leadership, training, or resources. Behind the slogan lie hidden assumptions. That the problem is clear, that better tools or methods are available, and that each worker has the skill to reinvent the process on their own. Without coaching or guidance, asking someone to be smarter can just mean find a way to do the job with fewer supports. Many people struggle because they're not wizards. They might lack specialized problem-solving training. A good leader needs to help people discover those smarter methods, give them time to experiment, teach them new skills, and show them why one path leads to more impact than another. So here's the paradox. Working smarter and harder can both be true. Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs host who spent years championing hard work, later quipped that he prefers work smart and hard. He saw the value in both muscle and mind. His point? Maybe the ultimate formula is not a contest. Sometimes you do need to grind through a tough day of learning basics. Only by doing the grunt work first might you discover the pivot that makes it easier. It took years of writing code before that Amazon engineer found the 20% high-impact tasks. We often can't shortcut to brilliance without first slogging through the known routines. Reflect on your own life. Have you ever found a brilliant hack on the first try? Or did it take countless failures and hard days before you stumbled on that shortcut? Often the myth of instant genius hides a mountain of invisible effort. Paradoxically, to work smarter, you sometimes have to work hard enough to recognize what to automate or improve. But once you reach that insight, you unlock compound returns. In the end, perhaps working smarter isn't a one-time destination but a journey of continuous learning. The next time you feel buried under tasks, ask, am I spinning faster on the same wheel, or am I steering towards something? Sometimes the bravest act is to rest, rethink, and relaunch with strategy. Sometimes the bravest act is to simply keep going through the fatigue when the task truly needs relentless grit. The real takeaway may be a delicate balance. Be cunning and be tireless. Be willing to sharpen your tools and swing the hammer when it counts. Remember that impact doesn't happen in a vacuum. It grows from both perseverance and cleverness. There's a Buddhist saying that labor and wisdom must walk hand in hand. As you build your future, see if you can find those moments of quiet reflection amid the frenzy. Because work is more than logging hours or checking boxes. It's a reflection of what we value and who we want to become. Will we let busyness define us, or will we define our actions by purpose? The myths we tell ourselves are powerful. So next time the clock ticks away and the temptation to push harder rises, pause and ask, are we moving our mountain, or just carving new footsteps in its side? The answer might lie not in doing more, but in doing more wisely.